All right, good morning, everybody. Chapter 20, it's a short chapter, but a really good one. Some exciting things happen in this one, and like I said yesterday, from this point on, it should be heading to the climax, and then boom, everybody's dead. Chapter 20, a maniac. As Petra brushed her teeth that night, she went over what happened in Delia Dell Hall. There had been a clear zap in her mind. It reminded her of the time that she had been plugging a frayed lamp cord into the wall and her fingers had touched the bare wire. Had Miss Sharp let something slip? Was she hoping that they'd pick up on her clues? Petra thought of what Miss Hussey had once said about criminals wanting to be discovered. If Miss Sharp and Miss Hussey had been collaborating. And then, as if someone had changed the prescription on her glasses, she suddenly saw how wild her ideas had gotten. Were she and Calder crazy to think that these two women could be mixed up in a theft? Their suspicions about their neighbor and their teacher suddenly seemed overwrought and childish. How could this staircase experience be anything but a huge, strange coincidence? First of all, she and Calder and Miss Sharp had been playing a game with pentominoes. Miss Sharp obviously had never seen a pentomino before. The words she had made up that afternoon were not something she had planned. Second, she was an old lady. She was the widow of a murder victim. She had gotten a letter from the thief. After weeks of worrying, she had turned it in. She had asked the police for protection, and Miss Hussey was a young teacher and a dedicated one. Why would she ever get mixed up in a major art theft? Petra tapped her toothbrush on the sink in a businesslike way. Her imagination had run away with her in Delia Dell. Hoping to get the mystery solved, she had jumped to some ridiculous conclusions. All this looking was making her crazy. The zap was probably from not feeling well, and Miss Sharp's pentomino words were nothing more than a magnificent Charles Fort incident. The stolen painting was probably in Switzerland or Brazil or Japan. She would apologize to Calder in the morning for scaring him. In 2 days, it would be her 12th birthday. 12 years old was old enough to sort out what made sense and what didn't. 12s. A lot of 12s in this book. In 2 days, it would be... Petra put down her toothbrush and, sitting on the edge of the bathtub, waited for the water to get hot. She suddenly thought about the lady. Am I thinking clearly? She asked herself. Did I imagine what happened yesterday? Are you in Delia Dell Hall? She waited for a response. If you're talking to a mysterious painting, you're probably not thinking clearly. Doubt seeped back into her mind. Since when had she been so rational, imagining that what she was best at? And hadn't she and Calder agreed that they needed to rescue Miss Hussey? And how about the letter that she had just found in Miss Sharp's bushes? She hopped into the tub and put a hot washcloth on her head, letting her neck flop backwards as she closed her eyes. Suddenly, she found herself picturing a rectangle inside a triangle. Rectangle inside a triangle. It was more a feeling than an image. She ducked her head, letting the water run into her ears. Couldn't she stop thinking? It was a sparkling, whiter than white winter morning, a morning of brusque sky, inky black branches, and the blinding two-dimensional look of new snow. Glancing out her window as she dressed, Petra thought that the branches could be rivers on a map or cracks in a blue plate. Maybe they were symbols in an unknown code. How do we know that the trees don't talk deliberately with their branches, giving slow, intricate messages with an unnoticed vocabulary of shapes? Calder's thinking was infectious. Whistling happily, Petra flew down the stairs to breakfast. The world felt rich with possibility. Her practical reasoning last night now seemed cowardly and unimaginative. What had gotten into her? She thought of the thief's phrase, "I congratulate you on your pursuit of truth." It was Saturday morning, and her parents were still in pajamas, their heads almost touching. They were absorbed in an article in the Chicago Tribune. They looked upset. "The guy is a maniac! A self-absorbed lunatic. Petra's father slammed his hand hard against the table, and all the cereal bowls jumped. What's wrong? Petra froze. More news on the Vermeer painting. We'll have to pray that the FBI knows what they're doing. Frank Andely stood up as he spoke, putting a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Aren't you glad you aren't responsible for saving one of the world's masterpieces from a maniac? Don't tell me that you see a bunch of eyes. Okay. Yeah, Dad. Her heart sinking as she began to read. The National Gallery of Art received the following anonymous letter yesterday, the last communication from the thief. An advertisement sent to the Chicago Tribune had been mailed from Florence, Italy. The letter received yesterday was mailed from a post office in Washington, D.C. Both the FBI and the National Gallery of Art felt it was important that the public know immediately about the thief's latest intentions. Dear National Gallery, the recently released book, The Vermeer Dilemma, What Happens Now, points to the public's overwhelming response to my letter and the 3 advertisements I took out in the newspaper around the world. They have indeed come to agree with me. Now, it is up to you and your colleagues to agree publicly with us. I demand that you write letters to all the owners of Vermeer paintings. You are to state that my point of view is a valid one, and to request that the attributions that I identified earlier should be changed immediately. If these attributions are not changed within 1 month, by January 11, I will, against my desires, destroy a lady writing. I will consider it a sacrifice in the interests of truth, a lesson for the too rigid, too dishonest, to do what is right. I am old and will not live long. I will, however, live to see this resolved on museum walls and in writing, or, to the horror of us all, in ashes. I beg you to spare a lady writing. If you look into your hearts, I know you will, as I predicted in November, come to agree with me. Do what's right. Petra dropped her paper and rushed out of the kitchen. Bom, bom, bom. That's big time. All right. Tomorrow, tomorrow, chapter 21, and then we will finish next week, chapter 22, 3, 4. Hopefully we'll just finish them all in one go. That way there won't be too many cliffhangers. Thumbs up. All right. I will see you next week.